Hey, what's up guys, it's Chip Gaming here and welcome to a brand new video. In this video, it's gonna be one of those, not necessarily rant videos, but just discussion overall. So I'm just gonna probably call it discussion on the title of this video. So, as you probably read the title already of this video, I'm going to be talking about E3 of 2021. Of course, not it had not all 3 days have happened, or is it 3 or 5 days? I can't really remember, but not all of the days have passed for E3. There's still one more to go, which I'm still waiting on. However, because of how with the things I'm into, like the companies and their IPs, I'm going to sort of collectively piece them according to what I think deserves to be bundled up to, if that makes any sense. So, for instance, you know, the first couple of days of E3, with Microsoft and Ubisoft and all that, I'm going to group them together because those aren't my most anticipated, you know, companies or, just area of E3 versus Nintendo, which is the last day that where I'm expecting, keyword here, expecting to have some hype stuff, and I'm grouping that for another video. I'm going to talk about that in the next video. So for now, I'm going to be talking about the E3 that happened before the Nintendo one has officially happened, if that makes sense. So I'm going to be talking about the things that I found pretty hype or interesting. I might go a little bit in depth here and there, but I'm just going to mostly talk about, you know, my thoughts of E3 so far. So I'm not sure how long this video is going to be, honestly, but I don't think it'll be too terribly long. I don't think so. So if you guys would like to hear my thoughts and my opinions on this topic, then feel free to continue watching this video. And before I officially get started, this here is a story cutscene from Final Fantasy XIV, of a side quest, and it looks like an awesome backdrop with decent music. Actually, it's good music. So even though this was an accident, I feel like it's the perfect backdrop for this kind of video. So since I thought of that, I was like, well, let's take advantage of it with this kind of video. So I did. Um, I'm pretty sure you can replay this cutscene after you complete the quest, but I'm not entirely sure, so I'm just gonna take advantage of it now. And plus, I kind of feel like talking about E3 a little bit. Anyway, so I'm gonna make this video now. Okay, so now with that out of the way, I'm going to get officially started. So, E3 this year. Well, not gonna lie to you guys, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it, but I'm I'm kind of having mixed feelings about it. Um, and I'm gonna explain. So, you know that E3 hasn't been, it didn't have an event last year in 2020 because obviously of the pandemic, but I don't understand. Like, okay, I understand why it couldn't have happened, but what I don't understand is if you're gonna bring it back the next year after, or whenever you decide to bring it back, how can you bring it back after taking a significant break, and not make it one of the most hype E3s ever? You know what I mean? Like that's kind of disappointing and sad. So I was kind of disappointed with E3 this year for one reason and one reason only, basically. Well, maybe not the only reason, but it's the major reason, I would say. Now, I am pretty sure I'm not the only one who feels this way for E3 in general, but you can correct me obviously if I'm wrong, but I honestly don't think so in this case. I feel like E3, personally for me, is that special, spectacular event for all gamers. It's that one special moment for gaming news. And this event should bring the most hype of announcements and trailers and all that kind of stuff. Like I'm expecting some big drops, some big announcements, new stuff. Keyword here, new stuff that nobody has ever heard of. And sure, we could dream of them, but you would never have heard of it until they would have announced it in E3. Well, I don't have the best memory on Earth, but from what I can remember, I'm pretty sure that every E3 before 2021 has been in that kind of way. You know, they've always announced new stuff. Some of it may be hype, some of it may not be, but that's not necessarily the point. The point is it was new stuff that nobody heard about. And honestly, the only way you could have heard of it is if maybe there were like small leaks of it here and there sprinkled across the internet. But even then, that's a little stretching it a little bit. You would still not really know about it. It's obscure at best, you know, even with the leaks. But for the most part, nobody would have heard of it, and then that would be the hype part because, whoa, new IP or new game for an existing IP, and the hype ensues. I hope this is making sense so far. But that's what E3, at least for me, is what it's meant to be, you know? And that's the problem here with E3 2021. Honestly, there wasn't any new stuff. And of course, there's a fan for pretty much any type of community or company, IP, whatever you want to call it, brand. I get that. But honestly, all the stuff that did show up, like, you know, company wise, at E3 this year, is pretty much disappointing or no one cares about it? At least I think so. I know I didn't. Obviously, the only ones I care about are the big names that I mostly play the games from the companies such as Capcom, Nintendo, Microsoft, even, and Sony. And Sony didn't show up this year, which that's another point I'd like to bring, but I'm pretty sure I know why. And it's so they don't embarrass themselves, one, like these other companies did, and two, they probably didn't have anything hype enough like that to bring to E3 since, like I said, E3 is meant to be the most hype event for all gamers in the entire year. Every year. You know what I mean? So, the problem here, like I stated already, E3 this year was honestly, like, no offense to people, but it was 40 to 50% almost half of people just being sponsored, being brought as guests to talk about nonsense. Like, sure, they're talking about the games that they showed or talked about at E3, but I don't really want to watch that. It's like watching podcasts in the middle of the trailers, if that makes any sense, or announcements of the games at E3. Like, podcasts can be cool, but I don't really care about that while I'm watching E3. You guys understand what I'm trying to say here? Like, I can't be the only one feeling this way. I I like E3. Sorry about that. Let me silence that real quick. I like E3 a lot, but this year, I don't know. It just flopped because a lot of it was just podcasts that, okay, sure, they're talking about games that they announced, but just I don't want to hear people talking about it. I just want to see a slew and of just a waterfall of new content, new info, new announcements, new trailers, new games being brought to this event. I want a flowing river of just new stuff, new IPs or new games, trailers for them, just back and forth nonstop. Like, that's what E3 should be about. And if you have to only show, like, if you can only show 2 new games, 1 new game, that's fine. Obviously, it kind of feels a bit disappointing if you are like following E3 or following a certain company when they're presenting their E3 show, but it's not as disappointing, at least as I'd like to think, as just getting shown not new stuff and seeing just a bunch of podcasts in the middle of each showcase or like in between the trailers or whatever. Like, that's not the way to do it, in my opinion. So, I don't like how every showcase that happened were just updates, info updates on existing games already. Like, you guys could have done that in your own personal directs or just release trailers or videos even of you explaining them if you have to or want to on your own YouTube channels, because most of these companies do have their own channel, so just upload it there. See, this is why I like Nintendo in that kind of regard. Nintendo Directs are one of the best things that has ever happened in the industry for gaming. I don't understand why no other company has done this except for Capcom with Monster Hunter this year. And that's the smart way to do it because, sure, it may not be, I guess, as, I don't know, in anticipation, because you could be releasing those directs, I guess, a little more regularly than E3, since E3 is only once a year, you know what I mean? But still, it would be great to update your fans and players alike on the existing games, which is what they did with the E3, which I feel shouldn't even be at E3 in the first place. I mean, okay, sure, you can put a couple things here and there, like maybe 2 or 3 things at most, like updates and info updates on existing games. Sure, that's fine, but 80% of it the rest of it basically should be new stuff. New hype stuff that nobody has heard of and could be potential amazing holiday titles. So, I don't know, in that regard, I'm extremely disappointed because even though I did find certain updates for existing games that I may have, cool or even hype, I still don't think that's what E3 should have been consistent of. That shouldn't have been all of the content, all of the shows and showcase in E3. That it shouldn't have been that. That should have just been done in the respective company's own YouTube channels in like direct style videos. Just like I said, this is why Nintendo excels when it comes to marketing their games. Sure, they're not perfect when it comes to marketing games. And of course, I'm full aware that as a company as a whole, especially nowadays, they're far from perfect. Nobody's perfect. I'm full aware, and I know that they have a bunch of flaws. But I'm just talking about specifically the way they present and market their games. And that presentation that I'm talking about is the lovely Nintendo Directs. That's why I like them so much, because it's an excellent way to update their fans and players alike on existing games, content for existing games, DLC, updates, whatever you want to call it, or even new titles that could be, put or implemented into the Nintendo Switch and future consoles for Nintendo. That's the smart way to do it. And then for E3, which I know it hasn't happened yet for them, it's supposed to be tomorrow, I'm expecting, or at the very least hoping, that they wouldn't do that, for the most part, at E3 when their time comes. I'm honestly hoping for a bunch of new titles. And honestly, if the only new things they have to show are like 3 or 4 games, that's fine. I'm honestly not even expecting 10 new games coming out for this year and next year. But at least 2 to 4 games. 2 to 4 new games, That's what I'm expecting, not 0 new games and the rest of the showcase just a bunch of updates for existing games that not only do most people already have by now, but have beaten multiple times over at this point. You know what I mean? But even though I've been talking about the bad stuff for the most part for E3, I suppose there were some decent stuff too that are worth mentioning. Like, for example, something that's not as, you know, profound or important, but I thought the stage for E3 looked pretty cool. You know, futuristic, modern, it looked nice, presentable. But aside from that, there were some updates and new announcements that actually got me hyped, and that's nice. Like I said, I don't hate E3 2021, but I definitely don't love it. I actually prefer the older E3s because they were just more hype. They showed new stuff, new games, and it's just awesome. I don't know. So even though E3 is not the worst thing I've ever watched, I don't think it's the best E3 I've ever watched, if that makes sense. So I'm going to delve a little bit deeper on the stuff that I did find hype, and I'll talk a little bit about it before I basically close this video. So first off is Microsoft, and okay, so I haven't played with my Xbox in over 2 years now, and that's because ever since I got my PS4 and now PS5, I never really got good motivation to, because the only IP I care about in Xbox at this point is Halo, and without Halo, Xbox sucks for me, alright? It's just the way it is, man. It's their strongest and best IP that they've got. If Xbox were to ever lose that IP, rip Xbox, honestly. And that's no cap. It's just the truth. So when they showcased Halo Infinite at E3 this year, it got me hyped for the game. So hyped, in fact, that I could or could not get a new Xbox Series S. I don't think I'll ever get a Series X, but a Series S, I'll consider. I'll consider it. So yeah, I'll talk a little bit about Halo Infinite. So they showed, a story trailer, showcasing like a cutscene of the game, and it looked pretty good. And the graphics look a little updated, so that's nice. It looks better. I like the details on Master Chief's armor. Looks really nice. All tattered and stuff. So it looks like it's in the middle of the game, obviously. So that looked nice. It had me intrigued for the story for sure, so that's a good sign. But the thing that they showed a little bit more is the multiplayer, because in terms of seeing stuff for that mode, we haven't gotten anything up until now at E3. We've, known about it since they did mention it outright that yeah, it's a thing and it's gonna happen. But other than that, it's gonna be free to play. We didn't really know anything about the game. The multiplayer part until now, which now we know quite a bit, thanks to E3. So it's actually pretty promising. I'll admit, it looks pretty good. It has me pretty hyped for Halo Infinite, and the multiplayer looks really nice. And the Battle Pass system, even though I'm not a huge fan of it, I think it's implemented rather nicely. Nicer than I could have actually expected in a Battle Pass, you know what I mean? With that type of system. So that's nice, actually. That's very intriguing. So I'm definitely going to pick up that game when it comes out because I'm a huge Halo fan. I love that IP so much. I've played Halo 5 and 4 to death almost in terms of multiplayer. So I definitely will pick up this game, and I think honestly it looks good. It looks really good. Story, I don't know if it's going to be good, but trailers make it look promising. It doesn't make it look amazing outright, but it does look really good. So yeah, other than that, I didn't really care or anything else that they showed at Xbox. Then there was Square Enix. So the Square Enix showcase wasn't bad, actually. And the reason why I preferred the Square Enix showcase so far, aside from the Capcom one, is because the pacing of it was better than the Xbox one and all these other companies. I liked how, honestly, if they had to, like, if the developers and the producers had to talk about the game, it was pretty short and sweet. And then after that, boom, next announcement. If the next announcement shows a trailer, we watch the trailer, and then that's it. Then next, we get another trailer or another announcement for another IP or a new game. We watch that. They may tell us a release date for it or not, and then we move on to the next. That pacing is kind of what I was talking about. Not exactly perfect, but much better than pretty much majority of E3 this year. It was nice, pretty decently fast paced, announcement after announcement, no fluff here and there. Sure, some videos and trailers, announcements had the developers talking about that game after it got announced for a little bit, but it wasn't that bad at all. Because after they talked, it was just a short, sweet video of the developers talking about it, maybe a minute or two long, 3 minutes at most. Next announcement after that, and that's the way I like it. So, in terms of announcements themselves, believe it or not, even though I'm not the biggest mobile gamer, I do play like Dragon Ball Legends a whole lot because I'm a Dragon Ball weeb, so I like that game a lot. Plus, the gameplay is pretty nice for a mobile game. So, in that regard, they announced a new mobile game that's coming out for Final Fantasies. Like it's like a Final Fantasy VII themed kind of game. Forgot the name of it, but it's basically a BR style. I don't know, 3D action platformer or slash, hack and slash. I'm not sure how it works, but it's a new game coming out. Final Fantasy IP on it, coming to mobile. That had me intrigued. Not exactly hyped, but intrigued. I'll definitely give the game a shot when it comes out. The other game that actually was a surprise announcement for me, at least, was Final Fantasy Stranger of Paradise Origins. That's a it's a strange game because the tone of it is extremely dark, darker than Shadowbringers, and that's saying something actually. That's saying a lot considering I've played through Shadowbringers. Um, and it's developed by Koei Tecmo, and the only other games I've played from Koei Tecmo are Hyrule Warriors, both the original and Age of Calamity, which I did enjoy quite a bit actually, but they're not my favorite games in terms of gameplay. But they're still fun, and I'm a huge Zelda fan too, so I had to pick them up because honestly they look fun and the character selection wasn't bad. So I like the games, especially Age of Calamity. I think I like that one just a tad better. But they were fun games overall. I did like them. I beat them. I have a few things to do in both games, mostly the first one, but overall I finished most of it, and they were fun. I liked them. So this new game has me intrigued because it's not a Warriors style game. I know that style, that genre of gameplay has a name, but I don't know it personally, so I'm just gonna call it a Warriors style, which other people will know obviously what that means. Um, so yeah, it still looks cool because it's a 3D hack and slash, um, and that it looks good. The only thing I have to complain about the game is that the main characters, the Wearer of Lights, don't look too appealing almost at all. They look kind of generic and just not matching with the theme of the IP, really. So I'm not a huge fan of that, but Garland looks awesome. I love his redesign, his modernization design. It looks really nice, actually. So Garland looks cool in the game. Um, but that's about it in terms of character design that really stuck out to me that I thought, wow, that looks awesome. But still, the gameplay looks so, it looks decent. I think it looks nice. It's interesting. I'll definitely give the game a shot. I'll play the demo whenever it gets fixed, because right now, as I'm uploading this video, the game is still bugged. Or recording this video, sorry. But yeah, I'll give the game a shot. It was interesting. Another interesting game they announced at Square Enix was the Guardians of the Galaxy. Now, that one, I don't really know if I'm going to pick up because I saw videos of the Avengers one and it really didn't catch my eye at all. And I like the Avengers a lot. I like the Marvel IPs, Marvel characters. Not all of them, obviously, but I a lot of Marvel characters like Iron Man, Spider-Man, Hulk, Thor. You know, I like those characters a lot, especially Spider-Man. I'm a huge Spider-Man fan. That's like the number one Marvel hero that's just my hero right there. That's just my main hero, bro. Um, but yeah, the game itself for Avengers, it didn't catch my attention. Honestly, it looked kind of bad almost. So when I saw that they did a Guardians of the Galaxy, I don't know if I'm gonna pick it up. But from what I did see, it did look better than Avengers. So who knows? Who knows? I might pick it up. Who knows? I'll wait after launch though. I'm not pre-ordering that game. Plus, I'm not a huge Guardians of the Galaxy fan, so even though I do like them as characters, they're not my favorite in the Marvel universe. So yeah, I'm not gonna pre-order that game anytime soon. But um, sometime down the road, I could pick up the game. I'm not sure, but it does look better than Avengers, so that's promising. Then we saw an update because I don't know why for Avengers, and they're getting an expansion pass with Black Panther and other stuff too, with Hawkeye, I think, and stuff like that. Now, I don't care about Hawkeye at all. Nah, I don't like that character really. But Black Panther I do like. Not necessarily my favorite Marvel character, but I do like Black Panther quite a bit. Um, but I don't know, man. Even though his design does look pretty cool, I just don't. I don't know. It looked all right, you know. It had me intrigued a little bit, but not enough to buy the game. Let's just put it that way. So yeah, for Square Enix, that's basically it. The two games that really stuck out to me that I might give it a shot, or most definitely will, is the Strangers of Paradise and the mobile one. That's pretty much it. So yeah, I think you guys can see the pattern that I'm going with here. I think Square Enix was the only one, and maybe a little bit of Microsoft, were the only companies that showcase like new games. You know what I mean? Like new stuff. But the rest of it were just, like I said, updates of existing games. So next and the last one that I watched and cared about is Capcom. Now, I think Capcom did it the worst, actually, because like I said, they were the ones that were at the most fault when it comes to just proving my point, where they just showcase just a bunch of existing games, just new content for them. Games that people already have and probably beaten 10 times over at this point, and they're just new. They're just adding more content to the game. Oh, I forgot to mention, I do own Godfall, and in Microsoft, I think it was Microsoft, they did. No, no, it wasn't Microsoft. I don't know who. Oh, the Gearbox announcement. That's what I was gonna say. The Gearbox announcement before I continue with Capcom. I did see the Gearbox and the Ubisoft one. So the Gearbox one, the Godfall new update looks pretty interesting, so that was cool. That was the only thing I cared about though. Then in Ubisoft, the only thing that really caught my eye was the new Mario Rabbids game that's coming out. That I'm actually looking forward to that game quite a bit. I'm most likely gonna pre-order that game. I'm not sure, but I really do want that game. I do like that game because the first one was nice. Very difficult game though. I have yet to beat it. Very frustrating, but it's a good game though. I like it quite a bit. I like that style of game. I like the Mario IP. It's one of the best IPs out there. Huge Mario fan. Rabbids can be kind of funny, but when it's overdone, it's a little meh. But nothing is worse than the minions, so I actually prefer the Rabbids over the minions. Um, but yeah, the Mario Rabbids announcement was pretty cool. It looks like it's going to be an improvement from the first game, which is really good considering that game could have been improved. Um, that doesn't mean that the game was bad by any means. Like I said, I really enjoyed that game. I'm still enjoying it because I have yet to beat it. And I like the Donkey Kong DLC, which is really nice because I also love Donkey Kong. Um, and being able to play as Donkey Kong, you know, in other ways than just basically jumping on enemies, is really nice in my opinion. So that's really cool. Um, so yeah, that's basically the only things that intrigue me. And then back to Capcom, Monster Hunter Stories 2. That looks super hype. I'm super hyped for that game. I already pre-ordered that. I can't wait for that game. That's gonna be awesome. and they announced the new Palamute Monstie, which I wasn't expecting at all. That was pretty hyped. That got me on my seat. That was awesome. Wasn't expecting for them to actually drop a demo because I was actually doubting it at this point because we're already well into the middle of June. That game's coming out in early July, so I was kind of losing hope that they were going to give out a demo, but gladly I was proven wrong at this showcase, and they said that there's going to be a demo which can carry your progress in the full title, which is very nice, just like the first game. I loved the first game so much. And it is the modern catch all the creatures and fight with them strategy game, turn-based RPG that I love. And that game, I poured quite a few hours into them. I don't remember the exact amount of hours, but I know it's above 100 hours. I just adore that game. I adore that IP. I love stories. Like, I don't know what it is about it, but I remember us playing that in a hurricane season when there was no power, basically, and we had a generator. And I would charge my 3DS and I would play Monster Hunter Stories for hours on end because that was the only thing I could play since there was no power. And oh gosh, it was an awesome time because even though we had no power, no regular power anyway, it was just enough to like power the kitchen, like the stove if we needed it, and the refrigerator obviously, and a couple lights here and there, and obviously a couple outlets. Um, all I can play was just stories basically, since it was a new game I got. And man, I'm telling you, I played the demo for so much that when I progressed to the full game, the first few stages or first few maps of the game were so incredibly easy to beat, like the fights, because I was overstacked with materials and I leveled up my monsties, so it was awesome. And the fact that the second game got announced earlier this year, yeah, I was totally shocked and pleasantly surprised, and I'm just full glad that even though the first game didn't do too well in terms of sales, we're getting a second one, and that's awesome. I'm ecstatic for that game. I'm anticipating it until launch day. I'm gonna be playing that junk for so long. I can already tell. I'm gonna make another video dedicated to that game because I have so much to talk about it, but I'm not gonna put in this video because this video is already ridiculously long as I can see. So if you guys want to hear my full thoughts about it, you can comment down below. I'll most likely make a video about it in the future, but for now, that's all I'm gonna say about that game because I have to stop because if not, I'm gonna continue. And then they showcased, which that was okay, I guess, because even though we knew the game was coming, it's a new game technically, so I guess that was okay. But still, for an E3 announcement, that's not the way to do it. Like I said, Monster Hunter channel has already been doing their own Nintendo-style direct videos in their channel for the past couple of months, so why don't they just do that and leave that portion of that announcement for a future direct, you know? Just wait until E3 is over, which is just tomorrow, and then literally the day after tomorrow, just upload that video announcing the Palamute and all that stuff, you know what I mean? Whatever. Next, it was Monster Hunter Rise, which, like I said, an existing game already, so not a good E3 thing, but still. The announcement of an update was nice, and the crossover event that they're doing between Stories 2 and Rise is nice. They did announce a new Palico skin, I think it is, like a skin or outfit, and it's from Stories 2. I don't know her name, but it's the female Palico that's traveling with that one kid in the story, in Stories 2, which is really cool. Then oh gosh, I don't know what happened there, but they, what's it called? They introduced again the, what's it called? The old skin that they announced already with the rider gear, which is the rider gear that they've been showcasing from the story's promotional videos and trailers. and obviously some paid DLC content here and there. But yeah, I didn't see any new monster announcements, just like new quests you can do of existing monsters. But no new monster updates, so that's a little unfortunate. But I wasn't expecting that actually, so I wasn't totally disappointed in that regard. I'm expecting new monsters in the next month, in July, so not too bad there. So yeah, that was all the stuff that I basically cared about at E3. So I hope you guys can see my point now. Like I kept saying earlier, E3 honestly this year was just announcements of existing stuff, updates and DLCs of existing games, and nothing what it should have been like past E3s where it was new games, new anticipated games and trailers. Only a couple new games here and there, but nothing new. Like it wasn't a slew of new games. It wasn't a, like I said, I wanted a river of new stuff, bro, not new stuff for old stuff, if that makes sense. So yeah, that was a little disappointing. So even though E3 2021 sucks in that regard, it's not the worst thing I've watched. So I've honestly watched worst movies in history that honestly those movies that I've seen, I know it's not the same style of video, obviously it's a movie and I'm talking about a live stream from a YouTube thing, but it's still watching something. So in that regard, it's not the worst thing I've ever watched. So I'm not totally disappointed because, like I said, there were some hype stuff that they did announce for other games and a couple new games here and there. It got my attention quite a bit. And I was hyped about, but for the most part, other than that, it was just a bunch of lame stuff that I don't care about, or just updates on existing games that have been out for months now, you know what I mean? So, you know, it's the E3 2021 is all right at best, so far. Which brings me to the end point of this video, and I just want to end this video by saying that I have high hopes for Nintendo because just like 2019, I'm hoping and I'm kind of expecting actually for Nintendo to win E3 this year. Actually, they're going to win it even easier than 2019. I can promise you that because, like I said, with these other presentations so far, Nintendo barely has to try in terms of presenting new stuff because at this point, any new IP or any new game for existing IPs that they could show would basically outdo pretty much everyone else at E3 this year, and that's kind of sad. But Nintendo usually doesn't disappoint in that regard, so we'll see. So yeah, I have high hopes for Nintendo, and I'm hoping and expecting, but mostly hoping, for Nintendo to outsweep E3 this year and to just be the king of E3 this year. And I'm expecting a couple leaks that I've been watching and heard about for them to potentially showcase at E3 this year to actually be real at E3. So like a new Donkey Kong game would be fire, a new Metroid game would be nice. Um, another new Mario Odyssey would be really nice. Another Mario Kart, like a brand new Mario Kart, not a port, that would be awesome with new mechanics, new features and implementation. That would be nice. That would just those announcements alone would outdo pretty much majority of E3. Like, just imagine new Mario Kart, new Donkey Kong game. Like, we haven't gotten a Donkey Kong game in years. New Metroid game, we haven't gotten that in ages. And in the new Odyssey, we haven't gotten any updates on another full title Mario game in I think 2 or 3 years now. So that would be awesome. And maybe even some new surprises, like something we wouldn't even expect but hoped for at this point, like a new F-Zero game. That would be awesome. Like they could do so many things. Those IPs are one of the most strongest IPs Nintendo owns. Um, I also hope they announce and they announce a remaster of Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask bundle. Maybe a Twilight Princess bundle. Oh my god, that would be so awesome because I love Twilight Princess and I love Ocarina of Time. Those are my two favorite old 3D titles for Zelda games. I just love those games so much in terms of 3D Zelda titles. Those are the best. I also like Wind Waker. That one's a really good one. If we can get a remaster with that, with the bundle of Twilight Princess, and then a bundle of Ocarina of Time Majora's Mask of Remaster for this year, potentially maybe early next year, that would be awesome too. Like, those announcements would have me so hype and would just overly, like, it would so easily win me over for E3. Like, they would win E3 if they just did those announcements. And they could do more if they want, but if honestly the entire showcase is just consistent of just the stuff I announced that could potentially happen, I'll be happy, honestly. I'll be happy and satisfied. I'll even be content with E3 if they showcase that stuff that I mentioned, like, Ocarina of Time remaster, Twilight Princess remaster, Wind Waker remaster, Majora's Mask remastered, maybe a new F-Zero game, a new Donkey Kong game would be so nice, and a new Mario Kart and a new Odyssey, a new Metroid, like those. That's it. That's all they need to announce. Just those things I mentioned, and they won E3. That's it. They won. That's literally it. And then they won. That's what I'm hoping for. So let's see if it's hype, guys. All right. Well, I've stretched this video as far as I could. I didn't think this video would be this long, but like I said, I had a lot to talk about. So if you guys want to know more about my thoughts on Stories 2 and all that kind of stuff, maybe some individual games, I'll post a separate video dedicated to that. But for now, this was meant to be just my overall opinions on E3 in general for this year. So I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope I didn't bore you to death. And let me know if you guys agree in the comments below or disagree. Feel free. So until next time, guys, this is Inner Shift Gaming signing off.